So for today's scar massage, what we're going to be doing is adding on to what we had been doing previously last week with some firmer pressure and some different movements, and we'll do a little bit of skin rolling, which not many people like, and if you don't like doing it, don't worry about it for now. It's still early days. You can do this as a technique later. I'm just giving you as many tools as possible. So just remembering that this white line is my pretend scar. Yours may be in a different placement, and that's okay. Feel free to pop a little bit of lotion or some olive oil, something to that effect, on your thumb or fingers to do this scar massage. Today we're gonna continue lying down, and we're just gonna start with our desensitization. So first, just swooping over and above the scar, but this time with a lot of pressure. And it's sometimes nice to go in the way of the bowel, especially if you have a little bit of postnatal constipation, just normal constipation. You wanna go from left to right, so you're going with the bowel. And then you can go below your scar as well. So from left to right. But it's not so necessary because we're not actually massaging our bowels, but you want to be deep enough that you're kind of hitting muscle tissue today, not just the superficial skin layer. We're trying to go down a little bit further. Good. So now that you are desensitized, sort of away from the scar, let's try and go as close to the scar as possible, maybe just above the scar line. And I'm gonna go all 10 fingers, and I'm gonna try and place my fingertips just at the edge of the scar line. And I'm just gonna do little circular motions. And when I'm doing these circular motions, I'm also lifting the skin slightly away from the scar. And when we do this, you just go to whatever pressure you can. Sometimes C-section massage can be quite emotional and quite emotionally triggering for some. But I promise you that hopefully it won't be one day if that's you and what you're experiencing. Good. And then we're just gonna go below the scar. So same thing, my fingertips are still on the scar, but just underneath. And we're working below, going all the way across. And then we've increased pressure from last week. Hopefully you've been doing a little bit every day. All right, and then so from there, we're gonna do our stretching. So I'm going to lift above the scar. So you can do this with either 10 fingers or your peace fingers. So you can lift above the scar and below the scar. Lifting above the scar and below the scar. Lifting above the scar and below the scar. And there's no perfect technique, it's what feels good for you. And the more that you do this a little bit every day, the better it'll feel. And now we're gonna go directly on the scar with our circular motions. All right, so now I'm directly on the scar, going circular motions, a little bit more pressure, but also just checking in with how you're feeling. Is one part of the scar a little bit more sticky? And then we're gonna do that a second time. So going over, circular motions, directly onto our healed scar, as long as it feels good. Brilliant stuff. And then now we are going to go for some zigzags. So I'm going to press onto my scar, I'm gonna lift up, and then I'm gonna press down over the scar, gonna lift up, zigzag motions, back and forth, over, and then to the bottom, over, and to the bottom. So it's kind of like we're getting that stretching at the same time. And then one more time, zigzags. And then nice deep breaths when we're doing this. So we're trying to use the inhalation and exhalation. Good. Okay, and then new technique today. It's gonna be a technique where we lift the tissue around the scar, on the healed scar, and we're gonna roll the tissue between our fingers. So we're trying to get rid of any stuck tissue. This doesn't always feel nice, so be gentle with yourself. And I would prefer you did this, especially if your skin is quite dry, to do it with lubricated fingers so that you don't kind of rub dry skin. So I'm going to pick up first, the edges are usually the bit that people work the most on. So I'm gonna lift up my edge, and then I'm going to roll the skin between my fingers, lifting any tissue away from the muscle layer. So I'm trying to lift my scar away. And if some parts are harder to do, don't worry. Moving along very gently, doing our pill rolling, and then letting it go, moving along gently, our pill rolling, letting it go, moving along, lifting, letting it go, moving along, pill rolling. Usually around the middle is the hardest. And move along. So when I'm doing this, I'm not just lifting and rolling, I'm also then setting it back down and doing this motion. So I'm setting it back down, doing that motion, so I kind of stretch the skin away, and I found that that feels the nicest instead of just trying to lift it up, especially if it's your first time doing this technique. And okay. And then we just finished by hands all over. And then you can say a nice little affirmation to yourself, like, thank you, body, for the amazing healing that you're doing, or whatever feels comfortable for you. See you again next time.